This is why I'm coming at this person for being a sad, lonely, probably subpar looking piece of garbage.
Thank you for tuning into Lurkers,
the only podcast
where a real-life couple
discusses the internet's top relationship problems
every week.
We are your hosts,
Lily
and Rafi.
It's time to get real.
Howdy, y'all. We're coming at you live, in the flesh.
In the flesh.
Episode 12. And we have a very, very special episode for you this week. In light of recent Reddit drama, r/relationship advice went private, and we have had to request access. We currently have some beef with r/relationship advice, which we will get into later. So, our topics today.
The first topic, we've left behind r/relationship advice, and we jumped into unpopular opinion to discuss a little bit of gender dynamics and relationship roles pertaining to gender dynamics. So it gets pretty deep.
And then, so for our second topic, we talk about our user-submitted question of the week, very much in the style of r/relationship advice, and we will go a little bit into a little bit more on the situation with us and r/relationship advice. We are hoping by next week, if we have not won the battle, we will circumnavigate and regain access.
Yes, we hope to be coming at you with a more normal podcast next week, but we hope that this very special podcast is very special for y'all.
It's very special for us.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy. Oh, I think it's recording.
Huh?
Oh.
Do I just rip the pellet stove out of the wall?
I don't know if that'll work.
Get rid of noise. Ha 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 ha.
So easy, one finger. If I can do it with one finger, you guys can do it with your whole hand. Kids can do it.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We in the flesh.
Listen. It's high fives. In flesh high fives. What's up?
It's not the only flesh.
Okay.
Sir, get your mind out of the gutter.
I'm actually celibate, just to clear the record.
Yeah, saving ourselves till marriage. Episode 12.
Episode 12, yes.
Is it episode 12?
Yeah.
206, 12.
And for that, we're back at it once again.
Damn, Daniel, back at it again with the white van.
Hey. And then, okay, I think the crazy part of this is our next 10 episodes after this are going to be far away again. But then I will be a graduated woman.
No, I already graduated.
And we will be in the flesh.
Somewhere.
Anyone trying to give us free rent, that would be lit.
And if the only free rent you're giving us is allowing us to live rent free in your phone and or head space, then that works too. Because listening to this podcast supports us.
Not yet.
Not yet, but like our ego.
We're still not coming at you with the ads.
Yeah.
We'll wait. We're still treating y'all.
Yeah.
We've had an offer for ad, but
We're waiting.
Jeff
Bezos, hit us up.
Alexa, put on my Saturday playlist.
Elon, where you at, mate?
I'll get jailbreak the Tesla.
You know what, Kylie, you don't want to pay for your makeup artist who almost died, but yo, send us some makeup. We'll put it on.
Is that a chicken? Is that a little pig? It's Wilbur.
All billionaires are bad. Anyways, episode 12, talking about podcasts.
Talking about issues. Talking about real important issues.
Okay, currently seeking approval to be allowed into r/relationship advice. Wait, Rafi, can you explain? Because this is news to me.
So to my understanding, a bunch of subreddits this week recently went private because one of the Reddit moderators is a pedophile. And that's about the extent of the knowledge I have on that situation. But I just know that there's a ton of subreddits that are currently private, which is El Brutal because we're trying to do a podcast.
But why would it go private because of that?
Because it makes the subreddit less money. Or it makes Reddit less money when subs are private.
Stirred but fair.
In light of current Reddit events, we still want to deliver to y'all on time. And we are going to have to wait who knows how long in order to seek approval from the Reddit mods since we are lurkers. So we are going to be going through still top Reddit posts of the week in regards to relationship advice, but we're giving you the in-person special.
Used to call your phone and text you and tell you you're special. Like, girl, you're special.
And as part of that in-person special, we are giving you the filet mignon of all of Reddit's relationship problems.
Nicki Minaj.
And we're going to be covering some big issues that I think are more appropriate to talk about in person. So we are going to be looking at a post from r/unpopular opinion. And in addition, we have a very, very nice user-submitted question of the week, so shouts out.
Is nice the word to use for the user-submitted question?
Juicy.
Yeah, we got a user-submitted comment of the week. I don't really want to use a qualifier in front of it, but...
In-depth.
In-depth, yes. Very much in-depth. That is a qualifier I feel comfortable using.
And it was very, definitely a post you would see on r/relationship advice.
Oh, yeah.
Submitted to us. So thank you for entrusting us with your...
What do you call them? Oh.
Relationship advice.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right.
So this is an unpopular opinion. Oh, also for context, this has been a hot topic on Reddit. Mind you, r/unpopular opinion is half the size of r/relationship advice, but this post got 31,000 upvotes this week. So, u/brag apple post. There is a massive disconnect in most relationships, specifically because men are taught how to treat a woman as they grow up, but women are not taught how to treat a man. Brag apple says, most young boys get advice from their parents on how women should be treated as they get older. However, it doesn't stop there for the boys. In social media, TV shows, advertisements, children's shows, movies, even video games, boys are shown many, many ways to treat a woman in a relationship. Not all of these are good ways, I might add. Regardless, there is a steady stream of influential content that will shape a boy into making decisions on how to treat a woman. On the other hand, what is taught to young girls about how to treat a man when they get older? What source of media or family member is letting girls know how to talk to men? How to communicate with them? Almost every source for young girls focuses on vanity and self-worth, always setting a bar and rules that have to be met. It's always about self-rising up, and nobody else deserves your time unless you decide they are special. That is why most men will find affection in anything a girl does for them. It feels unique because women aren't taught how to care for men, so when they show kindness or affection without it being loving, it will always feel like so much more.
I mean...
This has levels.
This does have levels.
Can I jump in?
You go in.
Okay. My initial reaction to the focus on women having self-worth, I would say this is a very, post-80s problem. This is second wave feminism in action, because for so long women didn't have a choice. Women weren't silenced. Women were not taught to have self-worth and taught to have these things.
Educate them.
While vanity was always a thing, and women were always passive objects to men where they had no agency. And it's great that 80s media encouraged women to have a sense of self-worth and have a sense of agency and feel like they had a decision in this process of finding a man, so to speak. However, I do agree that within that, this can foster what some refer to as the spoiled princess mindset, where, I don't know, if a woman's happy on her own, that's one thing. Whatever you want, that's perfect. You do you, girl. Be empowered. But if you are a woman in a relationship, I do think there is a lack of media teaching you how to treat a man, just because that rhetoric is seen as so anti-feminist and it's viewed as oppressive to women. So any depiction in popular media of a woman shown how to treat a man besides being sexualized, like how to just treat a man regularly, is seen as anti-feminist. So it is something that I feel like girls aren't taught anymore, whereas men, it's doubled down on, like, this is how you need to treat a woman.
All right, so two things. One, yes, on like how to treat women being a focal point of many of what we watch, much of what we watch. But I think number one within those conversations does play in a conversation of how women should treat men as well. In most decent media, like in most decent movies. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a Tyler Perry movie, but like that's a whole thing. And like, I'm not saying it's the right way, but again, like, it depends on what you're watching. Number two, have you seen Devil Wears Prada?
Oh, okay. I see. You think this has nothing to do with you.
Devil Wears Prada, one of the focal points is the fact that this woman picks her job over this man and the negative adverse effects that has on her. And like, I think that's, and one of those is her relationship. And I do think that and like, that's just like the first one that comes to my head, but I do think that those conversations are out there, and it's just a matter of not being shoved in your face per se, but I do think it's a conversation that's had a lot, and I don't know to the extent that it's a healthy discourse. But the discourse is being had for sure.
I will say though, with the Devil Wears Prada example, like, I feel like that film is brilliant in presenting that issue, because that's a double bind that women are put in that men aren't, where it's like men can still have a career and have that full career life and be crazy about the career and still have a relationship and like still, you know, like that's not weird, and like society doesn't view them as neglecting their relationship because they have this full career life. Whereas for women, if they have that equivalent career, it's automatically deemed that they can't be fully present in a relationship or be in a good relationship partner.
Yeah, and I will say that I without a doubt agree with that, but I think that's a very American problem, and now that we have an Australian viewer,
No flex zone. No flex zone.
or listener, we gotta broaden it to more international conversations. And like, I think a large part of that is because employers still have the bias, especially in America, where if you're gonna have to pay somebody for maternity leave. And paternity leave still widely isn't a thing today.
Well, maternity leave isn't really a thing in the U.S.
Yeah, no, and
there's
that's
no
the thing.
law for it at all. Whereas like a lot of European countries, if we're gonna like talk internationally, do have that. And also, there's a lot of countries where women just can't work.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, if you're talking about a place like Sweden, you're talking about a place like Finland.
And there's paternity leave.
There's both mandatory paternity leave, which is like 6 months, and then maternity leave, which is like 9 months. So like, you get ample time to be a human and do your humanly duties. And that's the other aspect of it, is the fact that having a child isn't just the woman's job, it's both parents' job, and that's very much a European mindset, but it doesn't really exist here. And that's part of the reason why The Devil Wears Prada is so brilliant, because it's like, it approaches that like Lily said, like that dichotomy of, yeah, you're a woman with a career, well, you're gonna have to pick. But at the same time, as somebody who has existed in the realm of corporate America for effectively my entire life due to parents and such, I will say many women are very successful with very outwardly happy home lives. I don't know how their home lives really are, but also have a career. And that is something that is changing due to, I think, our generation, but I would say more so the millennials.
I mean, we did see the way that COVID set working women back significantly. Though, fun fact, working women right now, in terms of employment, COVID set them back to rates of the 1940s.
Yeah.
Just as a fun little statistic on that.
F is for fire that burns down the whole town.
Because once again, like, women had to choose, like, whether they were going to continue a career, support a family, and it's like, now they're also the educator of their children in many cases and have to juggle so many things. And even in instances where women are making more, they usually end up being the ones fallen on for domestic things, which is a task. Also, one thing I will point out about this post that I think is interesting is OP doesn't actually, like, besides saying that most men will find affection in anything a girl does to them, like, they don't really say, though, like, how specifically women should be treating men that they're not. And, like, I think the way that men should treat women has very much changed since the 60s and 70s, and, like, that's been, like, a constantly evolving definition, and, like...
It's changed since the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's a fact, and, like, even the way that, like, men should speak about women, but, I don't know, that is another area where it's polarized. Like, I can't tell if OP is coming from, like a progressive standpoint or from a conservative standpoint on this.
I think regardless, it's a great point, though.
Yeah.
Like, I think this conversation is a very important one. It is a hot button topic on Reddit right now because it is something that we really do need to assess. Like, and I think it is something as a culture that we should constantly be reassessing, because there's stuff like The Bachelor and Love Island that is 100% toxic, but there are people out there who genuinely aspire to that. And it's like, it's not good, y'all. That is not good. Jersey Shore is not how we should be behaving. This reality TV is not it. And, like, I know for probably most people listening to this podcast, they'll be like, yeah, LOL, like, duh. But there genuinely are people out there who are like, oh, I wish I could be The Bachelor or on The Bachelorette or whatever. And it's like, that should stress y'all out as much as it stresses me out.
I mean, I feel like that's another thing, too, that's interesting to compare is, like, how that's changed. Like, talking about the whole Vanity conversation, like, how reality television, specifically reality television, has changed since its inception in the early 2000s, because I feel like in the early 2000s, like, there were people out there, yeah, you have, like, one or two people that are there because they're an aspiring actress.
You know who you really look like? You look like Luther Vandross.
But nowadays, I feel like the majority are people that are social media influencers that are there solely for that, like, promotion of self and that promotion of vanity, and an opportunity to kind of, like, show off. And, like, it's a very, like, singular mindset that where the whole purpose of finding love and whatnot is an afterthought. Yeah.
Just, like, on that, I think they've always portrayed 1960s era politics, like, in general, like, and I'm talking about relational politics, the relationship politics, and just general politics, because, like, we look at the most recent season of The Bachelor. It was the first ever black bachelor. The show's been on since, like, 2002. Think about that.
Let that bitch breathe right there, man.
Second, it's the first ever black bachelor, and a man decided not to marry anybody. And you have all these people on the progressive left, like, it's because he realizes he's the first black bachelor and he needs to make the right choice. And he actually wants to find happiness, like, basically fantasizing about the way that this man thinks. But, like, at the end of the day, forget his skin color. Like, this is a matter of this man is viewing relationships as a long-term commitment. And he realized that none of these people were on there looking for a long-term commitment, and they were all just bachelor, like, they were all just, I want to be on The Bachelor type people. And, like, that's the conclusion that he came to in his head. And, like, think about that. Like, for like, that's important on many levels, whether it is because he came to that conclusion because, yes, he is the first black bachelor and wanted to make the right choice, but also because we as a society just normalize awful relationships being accepted.
Mm-hmm. And fantasize. Like, you look at, like, especially, like, influencers and social media, like, the whole Jake Paul and Tana Mojo thing, like, the fact that it even happened, like, it really goes to show how, like, you know, like, the one thing that is supposed to be, like, the most sacred, regardless of what your religious or spiritual background is the union of marriage, and how our generation, and just, like, how I'm gonna blame the internet once again, how everything's been corrupted, and how even, like, the sanctity of marriage is not sacred anymore. No things are sacred.
But you have to understand this, man, that we are cursed people.
And it's sad. it's really sad. And I think it goes back to this whole, like, the me mindset that's fostered by social media, where it's like you're just creating a false identity, and it's like, how can someone create a genuine relationship if they're still stuck in this, like, false identity that they've created through the internet? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is why Instagram's bad. But
like it transcends Instagram and stuff, because you have the, like, I think Kim and Kanye are a great conversation as well, because they have kids. Like, their relationship is no longer just a financial partnership. They have actual responsibilities that they brought into this world together.
And going back to, like, Bound 2.
Yeah. Like, that. But, like, you look at it, if you, just because this isn't me looking at it through the lens of the man, but I am a man, so, yeah. But, like, it's also just me looking at it through the lens of a former Kanye fan.
Allegedly! You said allegedly, I didn't.
Like, if you look from Bound 2 to his most recent non-Christian album, Yay, the way that Bound 2 was about, like, sticking together and, like, that, like, joint of marriage, and then on Yay, which was 2019.
But also the commercialization of Bound 2.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, and, like, Yay is this, and Yay, it's the same thing. It's like, Wouldn't Leave is a really problematic song. It's like, she's a real one, and this marriage is real because she wouldn't leave me during some of my darkest times. And it's like, yo, that shouldn't be something that's a pride point in your relationship. That should just be a fundamental aspect of your relationship. And, like,
And we saw, though, how that wasn't even true, because the way that she profited off of him in her TV show and would publicize everything about their relationship, and, like, even though she was, like, didn't divorce him, she was still publicizing his darkest moments and still, like, not just holding that space for him and, like, being that support. It was just another means for her to make money.
That's tea, actually.
And then she divorced him.
Yeah.
And, like, and that's the thing. I hope Kanye's getting half, honestly, because she makes bank, so we'll see. But anyways, it is a powerful statement with the way that Wouldn't Leave resonated with so many people. You know? Just like how Bound 2 resonated with so many people. Like, people were like, damn, Kanye really found love, and, like, this is the most Kanye way he could have expressed it. But, like, Yay, like, that Wouldn't Leave song, yeah, it's cringy and yeah, it's problematic, but there were a lot of people that were like, that's a powerful song for Kanye to make, like, considering all he's been through and, like, considering his mindset. And in Hollywood especially, like, just that general mindset of, like, sticking with each other through hard times seems to be pretty rare. At least pretty rarely portrayed.
Because, and I think it goes back to what I was saying before, like, the sanctity of marriage and of that union it's gone, because, like, the whole idea of, like, till death do us part, like, you know, when you're at your lowest, like, I hold you up, like, etc., like, it doesn't exist, because I feel like it goes back to the way that, I'm sorry, I'm gonna blame the internet again for, like, the way that people have been commercialized. And, like, this isn't even the internet, it's just, like, consumer culture in general, the way that, like, human beings are commercialized and seen as, like, commercial objects which are disposable. And I definitely think the internet, once again, it, like, paints this picture, like, with Tinder, that people are swipeable and people are disposable, like the oldest model of your iPhone, where you can just trade it in for a newer model, and there's, like, no value in things. And I think it's upsetting. It's really upsetting. And, like, I think it goes to speak to our privilege, because you go even, like, 60, 70 years ago, like, the majority of people weren't marrying for love. Like, the majority of people, like, not necessarily, like, arranged marriages in a traditional sense, but, like, things were highly, like, arranged, and it wasn't, like, we didn't have the privilege we do nowadays, where, you know, like, you don't have to worry about race, you don't have to worry about class, you don't have to worry about so many of these other things, and, like, you don't have to just marry the person that your parents and their parents, like, pair you guys together. And that's a blessing in many ways, but once again, like, people view people as disposable.
Yeah, like, go on that point, we as a people are probably regressing, I would say, because there are more conversations within both white culture, or between white people and between black people, that we should stay within our race. in terms of marriages, which is...
That is not correct.
As a mixed human being, I fundamentally disagree with that. And there's also just, like, for people who want to settle down, there is more of a pressure to stay within what you know, basically. Because now that we have the internet, I feel like a part of the reactionary nature of us as people is just to push everything a way that we don't necessarily understand, and we're products of an algorithm, like, at this point. I don't know if I said that last episode or if I just had a rant about that, like, last week, but Instagram and everything, they're just algorithms that funnel us into a bubble and show us what we want to see. And like, realistically, we're gonna start living our lives like that when we spend so much time on Instagram, and especially a generation like Gen Z or millennials who were raised on this. And so you're being pushed into the bubble of things that you want to see. And to tie it all back together, some dude who's out here listening to Kenny Chesney and watching NASCAR races isn't going to be exposed to The Devil Wears Prada, you know? And so that it's very easy to have this point that women don't have this conversation about how men are treated or how they should treat men. Therefore, like, I think I initially disagreed with it, but, like, yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. What we're exposed to is super important. And there's a very specific sector of this world that talks about how women should treat men, and it is often pushed away from most people due to the fact that most people don't want to have real conversations.
And I will say too, like women, you know, because, like, obviously, like, this person posting this is obviously a man, and it's implied that, like, these conversations with family members happen starting from a young age, and, like, those are within male circles. And then they make the point saying that, like, girls don't have those conversations. They say, what source of media or family members letting girls know how to talk to men? I would disagree with that, and it's like, yeah, you probably just don't know about that because, like, why would a male be in that space for the same reason why would a woman be in that space? And I would say those conversations do happen, but I will say, like, it is harder as a woman just because, once again, because of feminism, because these radical notions of feminism have changed women's agency so much over the past few years, where I think that a lot of older women who were taught growing up, like, how to talk to men and, like, how to, like, you know, because some things don't change over time, and I think that, like, a lot of those values do get wrapped in temporal concepts that are inherently anti-feminist. So I feel like a lot of those older women don't know how to have those conversations with younger women without making it sound like they're trying to oppress them.
That's extremely valid.
But I will say, like, I personally, like, my grandmother grew up in a very traditional, like, 1950s household, but she still was able to, like, we still had those conversations, and she was still able to, like, get those baseline ideas across. And I think that those conversations do happen. It's just harder because the concept of what it means to be a woman and what it means as a woman to have agency has changed so radically. And I do think that it's hard to find or to sift through, because women are presented with so many ideals, and women are constantly presented with so many ways that they need to look, act, dress, behave, especially with social media. Like, it's constant, and it's like that algorithm is, like, constantly feeding women, like, how they need to, like, look, dress, act, whatever, and it's very overwhelming. So it's like trying to sift through all of that garbage that's changing constantly to find those few values that don't change throughout time. That's a process that takes time, and I do think that, like, obviously not all women are, like, lucky and blessed to have women in their lives like that who can translate those concepts for them, or even understand how to translate those concepts in the context of this beast of social media, which they themselves don't understand.
Yeah, and just thinking about it as a man, what I would tell, like, if I had a daughter at some point, how I would tell her to treat men, it's like, yo, honestly, I don't trust... Men are hoes. Men are hoes. Men want sex. And, like, that's, yeah, sure, that might be an antiquated thought process, but, like, we're horny as shit. That's just, like, how we are. And it takes a lot for us to get to the point, to get past that point, you know, and to get more towards the side of, all right, maybe we don't just want sex. Maybe we do want comfort. Maybe we do want X, Y, and Z. And I do think that's part of the reason why there is such a big incel population in the Gen Z age group and millennial age group, is because when you're exposed to all this Facebook exposed to all this Instagram things with all these ideals that you're supposed to be treating women like X, Y, and Z, the standards aren't the same, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. And they're just like, at the end of the day, your fundamental biology is to view women as you want sex, and if you never get sex, and if you're treated as less than because women are like, ew, that's all you want is sex, and you're like, but I'm just trying to be honest, like, I'm not trying to play within these roles, then you're pigeonholed into a realm that, yeah, you are effectively isolated due to the fact that you think like X, Y, and Z. And so now, as a man, you are kind of, like, it's very easy to view men as dangerous. Like, it really is. And that's kind of just where we're at in terms of the discourse. Like, how do you have a conversation with your daughter about trusting someone's true intentions when so many stories are coming out during the Me Too movement of people just being absolute monsters and men being gaslighting women and men abusing women in so many different shapes and forms and sizes and colors? It's genuinely fucked, you know. So how do you have that conversation? And yeah, like yeah, sure, at the end of the day, we're talking about human to human support, and so you want to be there for one another. You want to be able to have somebody that you could come to, and you want to be able to have somebody that you can hold up, but at the same time, you don't want to be giving up everything that you have because this person's taking everything from you, because that's abuse, you know? And, like, in order to get to that point, you need to have a level of self-worth that I don't think the media does a very good job of teaching. And so when
media definitely works to undermine it constantly.
Yeah, and so when you're talking about women, like, and when you're talking to women how to treat men, I think it is very fundamentally important for that woman to have a strong sense of self and to have that strong personal awareness of what they deserve and of their self-worth, because it's so often mistreated. And yes, as men, this is a conversation that we have to have really on our side, is how do we change this image of us being abusive pieces of shit? And part of it is to stop being abusive pieces of shit and admit that we're being abusive pieces of shit, and we have been. Let me preface this with saying I'm wearing a Destroy the Patriarchy shirt. But, like, at the end of the day, it does come, we do have to admit that at some point, that as men, throughout history, like, sure, you individually may be a great man. I view myself as a great man, and I have that self-worth, and Lily can talk if she needs, but, like, I genuinely do. But at the same time, I would be the first to admit that throughout history, yes, men have been awful, and a hesitancy of women to deal with men, and this being a complex topic, is very, very easy and to understand. Just like zooming out, looking at history, zooming out, talking to women, because oftentimes you'll talk to women, or at least my experience when I went to college, I also grew up with a mom and a sister who I was very close to, and basically, like, they raised me. My dad was working a lot, and so was my mom, but, like, my sister, my mom was there, and, like, I've always gotten along with women very easily, but I also played a ton of sports, so, like, I saw both sides of it. And once I went to college and I stopped playing sports and I started hanging out with women, I'd have these conversations, and it was conversations about basic things like, yo, this dude is doing X, Y, and Z. What are they thinking? And it's like, yo, like, they just want sex. And they're like, no, but da 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 da. And it's just a conversation that they've never had before. And it's like, this is, y'all, we need to talk to each other. Like, it sounds simple, but it's just not happening. Like, tweeting at each other, us making Instagram hashtags to show support for one another, that doesn't do shit. Like, having these actual conversations is where the change is gonna come, and the change is very, very necessary. I don't even know how on topic I was during all of that, but
I mean, you wouldn't like to bring it back. I don't know what we were talking about before. Like, I think a big part of that too is like communication. Like you were saying, it's just not there. And you can have relationships where, yeah, people are posting photos of each other on social media and like posting hashtags and like posting whatever, but in reality they're not communicating with each other. They're sitting on a couch staring at their phones the whole time and like don't ever actually communicate. And I think that's also something that's been normalized, but not something that we see, because what we see is the social media like curated image, and people just I do agree with OP that like men and women don't know how to communicate. Do I necessarily agree that like, I don't know, I gender constructs I think are a thing, but if you're someone who's comfortable operating within that sphere, like, power to you. But at the same time, like, I do think communication as a whole, like, as people, like, even between friends and families, like, it's not there, and it's not something that's valued, because it's like, why have real conversations when you can just post things that are perfect and pretend that everything's perfect online?
Or you can go online and just be fed the ideas that you want to see.
Yeah.
And like not have any conflict. And like, to that point, why aren't feminists and the men's rights activists talking? You know, like, if we're talking about the men's rights movement, there is a genuine portion of the men's rights movement that isn't just to be trolls online. Like, there is a genuine portion of the population, surprise, surprise to many people. There are many men on this world who have experienced extreme pain in their lives and have been hurt very badly. And some of that has happened by the opposite sex. And as a result, they've come into this men's rights movement. And these conversations are tied directly together. Like, at the end of the day, we're talking about gender. Like, period. And you want to, like, some people want to discuss the validity of genders, which is not a conversation I will even begin to entertain. All genders are valid. F*** you if you disagree. But when you're talking about men's rights and women's rights, like, those two tie hand in hand. Because at the end of the day, they're human rights. And the two movements not only don't talk to each other, when they're expressed in the media, they're diametrically opposed. Like, they're movements that can't coexist, which is incorrect. It's incorrect because it's human rights at the end of the day. And I think that's just such an emblematic show of where we are as a people and where we are within our discourse.
You already know.
Alright, so what do the people of Reddit have to say? Dick Laurent 97 says, I'd add to this, men aren't expected to either be aware of their own feelings, process them in a healthy way, or communicate them honestly and respectfully. Yeah, no, facts. Like, talking about your emotions, and that's part of, I think I meant to bring that up when I mentioned earlier about this is a conversation men need to have within ourselves, is the fact that we don't talk about our emotions. And like, there's more of it happening, but you go into a YouTube comment section of the I Am Athlete podcast with Brandon Marshall and Chad Ochocinco, two legendary wide receivers in the NFL, talking with each other, and Ochocinco breaks down on camera and cries. And like, he's talking about his emotions, he's talking about his past, and he breaks down on camera and cries. And Brandon Marshall has a real moment with him and is there to support him, but you go into the comment section and they're all just clowning Chad Ochocinco for crying. And it's like, come on, we're on the same team here. Like, I agree with the fact that this isn't an off-topic comment. Like, in order for women to understand what we need to understand what the hell we need. And that comes from talking about our emotions. That comes from talking to each other and having real conversations beyond which bitch is the baddest, you know? Like,
that's that's like also where the men's rights movement and the women's movement needs to come together, because I think that like the women's movement, like that's a big thing too, is like men knowing how to process their emotions in a healthy way and like not shaming men for processing those emotions, because in the end, like, to be a feminist isn't to say that women are better than men, it's to say that women and men should be treated equally, socially, politically, economically.
Period.
And I think there's a big misconception from the men's rights side that the feminists are here to say that all men are bad and out to destroy men, and that I don't think that's it at all. I think that women just have been oppressed, abused, silenced, beaten, politically disadvantaged, and economically disadvantaged by law for centuries. And women just simply want an equal place at the table, not an elevated one. And like, yeah, of course there are like people on the fringes, just like within the men's rights movement. Like I don't think the majority of men's rights people are bad people. Like, yeah, there's always people at the fringes that are misogynist, or what was the word we learned in our first episode?
Misandry.
But I think at the end, like, people, like Rafi said, like, just want to be treated like humans. And it's like, yeah, you can have different concepts of what it means to be a man and a woman without needing to put the other down. Yeah, this comment also I feel like is kind of important. It was posted by r/in search of serotonin. And they say, I'm not sure how prevalent this is today because it certainly doesn't apply to my SO, but the women of my mom and brother's generation were 100% taught how to treat boyfriends and husbands subserviently. And I do think that's like part of the issue too, is like those conversations haven't been had yet, where it's like, all right, well, if women aren't going to be inherently like servants to men and less than, like, how do we treat men in a way that's like with respect and dignity, and like not with this whole like princess and the pea like mindset. And I do think that that's a conversation that's lacking, and I do think that, dare I say it, feminism is lagging behind in not having those conversations in how to treat men with respect and dignity and not treat men less than. Because I do think that a lot of women associate being a feminist with just getting to be I'm not gonna say it, but like not treating people with respect because they're a man, and not thinking that men deserve respect just as any other human being. And it's like, yes, ladies, like, we have been oppressed for centuries, but like that doesn't mean that we don't still have work to do. And it's like, as a feminist, like, you're gonna adopt that work, like, you need to like maintain your respect. We need to, like, as women, like, maintain our elegance and grace. Like, those aren't subservient characteristics, those are empowering characteristics. And treating people with respect is just a basic thing that all humans need to do. And yeah.
What's the phrase? The free the nipple movement can't be the pinnacle of feminism. Like, empowerment is extremely important. Just like in any minority groups or oppressed people's movement. But that's not the end goal. Empowerment isn't the end goal. Equality is the end goal. And that's something that you can't lose sight of. And in order to achieve that equality, you need to have some form of attempt to reach across the aisle, so to speak. Like, just like Malcolm X is personally one of my favorite people ever to exist on this earth. But a Malcolm X's power is extremely diminished without a Martin Luther King right next to him, pushing for at least attempt to reach across the aisle, you know?
Yeah, you need that like conservative movement within the movement just as much as you need the radicals. Both are very important sides, because in the end we don't see either side getting what they want. It's somewhere in the middle, and like, these aren't black and white dichotomous issues. And
facts. And we'll just end it with Oigoy777 says, there just should not be a gender divide in how you treat people. You treat a partner as you would a close friend, whether they are male or female. The polarized idea of how men should act/behave and how women should act/behave doesn't help anyone. Just puts a barrier between genders and stops them understanding each other. Yeah. that simple. At the end of the day, it's human rights.
And I will say something that I would say the best piece of like relationship advice that I ever got from a family member was that you don't date someone unless you're friends first. And it was always like, be friends first. And it's like, if you are going to enter in a serious relationship, that person should be your best friend. And I do think that you inherently, like, yeah, there can be some gender play within that, but you inherently, like, can't view things solely through the lens of gender in order for someone to be your friend. Like, you just need to view them as a human.
That's off top. Period. If
men inherently view women as objects, don't be surprised if you view a woman as an object that she views you as an object. And I know this isn't on r/relationship advice, but this wouldn't be our podcast if we weren't giving advice. And I would say my advice in this situation is to solve the divide between men treating women and women treating men. Be friends. Be a close friend. Don't view women and men as other than yourself and other than you as a human. Just be friends.
Facts. Alright. So, user submitted comment of the week today is from an anonymous user. We are going to read now. So let's just get real with it.
That's weird.
I'm asking this on behalf of my aunt and uncle, both in their 60s, who have college-age children. Their relationship had been falling apart for a while, but finally reached its breaking point during the pandemic when my aunt started working from home. My uncle has not worked in over a decade. This would be fine if he found other things to do to fill his time that were constructive to his well-being and got him out of the house, such as hobbies and volunteering, but for the most part, he refuses. He has also been deeply depressed for years, which would be easier to be sympathetic towards if he didn't externalize his symptoms and if he completely didn't refuse help. He has tried medication, which did not work. Therapy did, but for some reason, he refuses to go back. Whenever he is depressed or anxious, he drags everyone down with him. He yells and micromanages a lot. If one of us is doing something, even as simple as pouring a glass of water, and we are not doing it his way, he will yell at us. If we do not want to go out and do something, but are running late, or it's raining out, or if there's any other factor that hinders us, he tells us not to do it, or makes us stressed and anxious about it, even though he's not going out with us. He rarely has anything positive to say about the state of the world, a movie we're watching, etc. He reads the news all day and vents about how horrible the world is, but refuses to do anything to contribute to it. Because of all this and more, my aunt wants to move out. She also has depression, but unlike my uncle, seeks medication and therapy, which has worked well for her, and she is a working adult who's overall trying to better herself. However, my uncle claims that because of his mental state, despite being a fully grown adult, he cannot be alone, and that bad things will happen if my aunt moves out. In your opinion, am I being too harsh on my uncle, and should my aunt move out? I really want to be sympathetic towards my uncle's plight and understand his situation better, but it is hard with the way he externalizes it and refuses to do anything about it. Damn. Initial impressions.
Well, two things. Yeah, I do think... I'm sorry.
Boo.
I feel like this is a nice topic to follow up the conversation we just had. Yeah, your uncle does sound like he's being a little bit of a Debbie Downer, as they would say. However, I will say one thing. With the therapy. Maybe, and just maybe, the reason that he's having such a hard time dealing with his depression and anxiety internally, whereas your aunt has found healthy ways and outlets, and why he's refusing therapy and refusing to acknowledge he's depressed goes back to this conversation we had before about the ways in which men's mental health and emotions are stigmatized, especially for older generations they're both in their 60s. So it's probably very, very stigmatized as your uncle in his 60s to accept the fact that he is depressed and to accept the fact that he might need mental health treatment or whatever, just because mental health is so stigmatized. And I do think that that's something important to take into account. And yeah, I'm not trying to minimize anything at all, and like I'm really not, because like I hear you. Old men are grouchy and they're in their 60s, and it's like, yeah, it says the relationship's falling apart for a while. Has he been like this the entire time he hasn't been working? Because maybe man just needs support, you know? Like, how is his negative attitude being received by everyone else? Is it the whole negative feedback loop where he's negative and then everyone else is negative back and is like, oh, you're such a miserable, like, person, da-da-da-da-da, and, like, is rude back, or, like, I don't know. I also think it is tricky because it's like you are kind of inserted in the middle of a situation that seems very much between two old people, and I personally don't feel comfortable answering the question, should your aunt move out and leave him, because I don't really think that's my place or your place. These are two people in their 60s, and like that's just why I don't want to comment on it, because I do think that that's like your aunt would know that better than anyone else.
Hold on. Wait a second.
But they came to us. We're gonna have to.
But that aunt didn't come to us.
But we still gotta make a knee-jerk reaction, you know?
My knee-jerk reaction is that he's a grouchy old man in his 60s, and it's probably been stigmatized that for him not to accept mental health.
Yeah. I mean...
Okay, 2 questions, and this is my initial knee-jerk reaction. 1, is your uncle abusive toward your aunt? If the answer is yes, immediately, yes, then your aunt should move out. No hesitation.
Okay, bye-bye.
Number 2, does your aunt love him, and does your aunt want to stick by his side till death do you part, highest and lowest? If the answer is no, then yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Pretty cut and dry. But like, it doesn't sound like he's stopping her from living her life. If he's ruining her life, that's one thing. But if he's just a grouchy old man that can't accept mental health help, that's an entirely different story than if he's like hindering other people's lives or being an abuser. Which I can't really tell from this.
I mean, it's hard because, yes, mental health is very much a stigmatized topic, especially in the world of men. Older men, especially. But, like, you gotta do something, because, like, at the end of the day, even older men, whether they would want to admit it or not, had ways to deal with their mental health. Whether that was going into their quote-unquote man cave and building shit, or going hunting with the boys, or hanging out with the boys and talking about their wives, like, and it doesn't sound like he's really doing that, which is really not good. And, like, he shouldn't just be festering in his own filth, you know? And, like, before we make a judgment on whether she should leave him, there should be some push to force him into going to seek some form of mental health, especially if therapy helped. Like, realistically, if therapy works, but you don't want to go because of what it makes you feel, that's fine. You could have your valid reasons, but also you're only doing yourself more damage. Like, if you know that it works for you and you're refusing to go, you're refusing help. And, like, you're refusing help that many people would literally kill for. Like, some people, therapy doesn't work, and there's a lot of things that just don't work for them. And, like, if they had that outlet and they knew, they would kill to go
I
to
mean,
that
it
outlet.
seems like therapy doesn't work for him. Honestly,
It,
I will
it
say
does
one
though.
thing,
It says it. She says it did.
Well, it's obviously not working for him because he doesn't want it.
But that's
and that's the thing is like this person needs to want it. And also one thing I will say that I am like noticing a pattern, like the way he's yelling and micromanaging, and especially if this stopped after he stopped working. Like, yeah, this man probably is depressed because he feels like he's lost all sense of control over his life and, like, just control in general. And that would make sense why he's micromanaging everything, even getting a glass of water, because it gives him some sense of control over things. And I do think that, like, if you want to help your uncle, because you're saying that you want to be sympathetic and understand his situation better, like, try to maybe help him find an outlet where he can exert like some sense of control, and or like whether that's a hobby, whether that's like becoming part of a group, whether that's a part-time job. Help him find a situation where he can exert control and exert authority, so that he's not micromanaging all the time, because I do think that he's missing something. And so he's just scrambling to find a sense of power and control anywhere in his life because he doesn't have a healthy outlet where he can exert that. You know, and like there's a lot of ways, but I think that like if you are trying to be sympathetic towards his plight, like you obviously know his personal interests and like things that he does like, and like I mean he likes reading the news, it seems like, and venting about how horrible the world is, but refuses to do anything to contribute to it. Like, this is an idea, and like I don't think this is like the best idea, and you obviously know your uncle way better, but maybe like help him like set up a little like podcast or something. Like, I'm just like, this is just the first thing that came to mind, but like a podcast where he can just rant about everything in the news, you know? And it's like since he's older, you don't need to like, it doesn't need to, you know, you could publish it on like Apple Podcasts. Sorry, Apple, not trying to come for you. Or just like help him find a hobby, and it's like take his personal interest and like help him find a situation that he can channel this energy of needing to control things into. And like that can look very different for lots of people. It can be anything from hiking, fishing, to starting a podcast, to joining a group online. Like, help him find a Twitch stream where he can rant about politics with other like old men. And like if you genuinely are trying to be sympathetic and help, or maybe talk to your aunt about this because she'll probably know his interests better, be able to like recall something he did when he was younger that really fired him up, like help him find an outlet to gain control over his life or feel a sense of control. And if that doesn't work,
okay, bye.
But it sounds like this man he's missing something.
And like maybe he had the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We're gonna make a very specific episode reference here. When Frank goes to, or when the gang goes to therapy, and Frank is in the therapist's office, explaining basically his backstory and the traumatic events he experienced as a child, and then he grows this hatred towards the therapist because she makes him relive the terrible things that he experienced.
My roommate was a frog kid. You ever see a frog kid?
Like, that's genuinely could be part of the reaction and part of his aversion to therapy. And I still think you should push the therapy route, just because you said that it kind of worked. I'm hyper-focused on that point, but, like, Lily's right. Get this man a hobby. I don't know if you should get him a podcast. He might say some ish that gets him canceled.
But, like, that doesn't mean that people are gonna necessarily, just the act of creating it.
Yeah, no. You're right. But, like, I don't know. If he's, like, borderline, like, Nazi-esque, like, keep him off the podcast again. We don't need more Nazi podcasters. But if he's just a man who's upset with the world.
Oh, show him, even if he is a Nazi, show him what subreddits for Nazis.
Don't.
No, but that way, like, he'll be confined within an echo chamber and just be able to let it out.
I'm not gonna. I will not openly support any of those
I'm not
communities.
supporting it. I'm just saying, like, maybe he just needs an echo chamber.
I think those are so dangerous. I think he should read some political theory. I think you should buy him a book on, like, Leninism. Get him to become, like, a full-on tanky. Like, I think tankies are problematic beings in this world, but I think they are so much less problematic than Nazis. So get him the, like, handwritten copy of the talks at Yan'an Forum from Mao. Or, like, get him some good Lenin content. Maybe even get him the Communist Manifesto. Just, like, get him into...
Are you being serious, or is this joke advice?
I mean, I would suggest people read actual theory before you throw them into the Nazi echo chamber.
He's in his 60s.
So he might find it interesting. He's not working. It sounds like he has the time to read theory. Rather than doing it at, like, 3 a.m.
I don't know. I just had another idea, and I think this could... I had a very cool English teacher.
Are you sure about that?
Who felt a lot of pride from looking out over his property and, like, specifically seeing, like, the geese. And he would just be like, yeah, those are my geese. And you could tell that gave him, like, an intrinsic, like, manly sense of, like, agency. So, like, maybe, like...
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Help him build a chicken coop and get him, like, some chickens and a rooster, and then he'd be like, those are my chickens, like, this is my domain. Or, like, if they have a pond on their property, like, get some ducks, and then he can be like, those are my ducks, and then...
What?
So farm. Get him into farming.
Yeah.
Word. Yeah, no, like, honestly, like... Yeah, at this point, we're just throwing out hobby
I think
advice.
he needs, like, a physical hobby that'll help him exercise. I don't think he needs to consume more content, because that sounds like it's part of the problem. Like, he needs something... He needs to exercise his manly, creative prowess.
She's got a point.
Get him into, like, boats.
Find out what his interest
boats in
is.
a bottle. Yeah.
Find out what his interest is.
Yeah, I agree with Lily that, like, we really shouldn't be making a judgment on whether... your aunt should leave him, but it sounds like this man is not doing enough on his end, period. Not just to fix his own mental health or to work with his own mental health. Fix is a dangerous word. Not just to work on himself, but, like, just in general. It sounds like the man is bored and has grown a disdain for this world due to his boredom. Boredom is a powerful, powerful tool of destruction. And I think getting him outside, getting him basically to do anything would be good. And, like...
Show him kindness, too. Because it's like, if he's being negative and you're just matching that with negativity, like, how do you expect him to be positive if he's already alone all the time? And, like, when he is interacting with people, they're just negative back at him. Like, elevate yourself. Be kind. Be positive. Don't feed into his negativity. Like, if you love your uncle, like, show him love.
Facts. And, like, get him into some... Another advice is, like, get him into video games. Get him into, like, Civ 5, Civ 6.
Let him, like, stream, or not stream, but, like, get him a headset so that he's interacting with people and can, like, yell at 12-year-olds.
Yeah, or you could just get him into, like, the Civilization games, like Civ 6. Bruh, you could lose days in that game. Like, literally, like, and you won't even realize it.
I don't think escapism, though, is what he needs. I think he, like, needs creativity and human interaction.
Civ 6 is so much more than just escapism.
I'm sorry, I hate video games, so I'm just going to disagree with Rafi on this point.
I hate.
Civ 6 is so much more than escapism. There's levels to that game. You build a civilization, Lily.
Y'all hear that?
And other than that, do not advise your aunt either way. Ask the questions Lily asked earlier in the podcast for sure. Those were very good questions. Very important questions to ask.
I hope that was helpful.
Yes, this is a very difficult topic to take on.
But, like, I will say, I did have a grouchy old man in my life who's very grouchy, and him finding a hobby it was the cure. Like, similar, I will say, I feel your struggle, and I really fully feel that, like, a hobby and creation are very, very, very powerful solutions.
There you go. User submitted comment of the week. We hope it was helpful. If you are listening out there and you would like to submit a question for us to take on, hit us up. DM us. Instagram at Lurkers Podcast. Hit us up on our Survey Monkey, link in the description. You can submit anonymously. If you have our number, text us, hit us up. We'll help you out.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Becky again, and guess what I'm doing today? I am complaining. Yeah.
Damn, yo. Alright, we got beef with r/relationship. Yo, these Reddit moderators are sad people. I'm gonna pop off. I don't know if this is really relevant, but what Lily is typing is a nice reply to some tomfoolery occurring on the moderator's end, trying to feel powerful and trying to feel like he is.
I'm also a woman. Justified. I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah. They're trying to feel like they're justified or they're championing a positive cause, saying, we would greatly appreciate if you would stop minding the grief and pain users post on our community for your own content. It's deplorable. Calling us deplorable for genuinely trying to be out here and giving some advice instead of just like hiding behind a keyboard and talking shit. And like they don't ban anybody. People post legit like Nazi stuff on their subreddit and they don't ban anybody. It's fine. It's fine.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
The importance of our podcast is the fact that we do have faces. We do have identities as human beings to be held accountable to, rather than just pretending that we are giving advice that we don't stand by at all and just like saying stuff for the sake of saying stuff. And like I'm not like we're not on our high horse saying that our advice is the best advice. That's why we read other people's posts. We also like aren't making any money on it either, so like that's tea too. But to call us deplorable when man just sits behind a screen, or woman, I'm not gonna shame, but when this moderator just specifically sits behind a screen and is like, you get into our subreddit, you don't get into our subreddit, and doesn't do anything about Nazis and doesn't do anything about like hate speech in general. Yeah, we are so deplorable.
Now I'm living. Let's go.
My response, and I feel like this is important just so our listeners know the purpose of our podcast. I do think that maybe they misunderstood and like thought we were just kind of like trolling when they said if you would stop minding the grief. I'm saying, so yes, they said we would greatly appreciate if you would stop minding the grief and pain users post on our community for your content. It's deplorable. I said we really aren't. I'm sorry if my earlier message came across that way. We are simply a young couple trying to give IRL advice to people. As we are not anonymous nor behind a screen, we have an obligation to provide the users honest, constructive advice. Our credibility is on the line when we give advice, and we try to be both honest and genuinely helpful. We do not use topics that are highly triggering or sensitive, and I assure you the purpose of our podcast is to provide advice which we are accountable for and could be helpful to listeners in similar situations. We do not make any money from the podcast and are currently refusing sponsors. This is genuinely a cause for the good of the people.
Yeah. That moderator though. Yeah. What's the moderator name? I want beef. I want him to listen to our podcast and know I got beef with him.
Their identity is.
Their identity? Oh, that makes me so mad. Yo, r/relationship advice moderators at Swaggertron111. Come at me, boy. I want all the smoke.
Free smoke, hey, free smoke.
It just makes me upset too. Maybe, okay, I have a theory that they went to my profile and my Reddit account is just me posting stuff in r/Animal Crossing of like my little socialist Animal Crossing memes, and me giving book recommendations for the best book that absolutely changed your life. And then mentioning the podcast to someone who wanted to know a good podcast that gives relationship advice. Literally, the promotion I did was someone saying, help me find a relationship advice podcast. So, yeah, and besides that, there was no self-promotion. I told people to read The Giver by Lois Lowry and posted some Animal Crossing memes. So I'm going to assume that this person either does not like Animal Crossing or women.
That's tea, actually.
And maybe the two are linked. Maybe you're his worst nightmare. I want all the smoke with the r/Relationship Advice podcast or moderators. I want to throw the hands with them. See me in the streets.
And I'm still on the court, ban me from the game because you was on my dick.
I will not judge you based on your physical appearance, though I am sure that it is subpar.
Boom. Roasted.
I'm not high-fiving you for that. Sorry, I just refuse to dab.
Yo, you want to know what the real issue in this world is? The show Mortgage or Marriage. I think it's like episode 7 or 8. It's the only interracial couple on there. Just everything about that episode. Other than the fact that we got an interracial couple out here.
Also, the premise of the show is quite literally marriage or mortgage. So a couple comes on the show and there's a real estate agent and a wedding planner who obviously hate each other. Like, they're very nice and like very like southern towards each other. That's the best way I can describe it. But you can tell they hate each other. And they're just trying to help a couple decide if they should invest in buying a home or getting married. And it's absurd. Like,
genuinely. Just that concept and like, should we get a house or should we get married? That is a decision that to me is a very easy answer 10 times out of 10.
The other thing with that episode Rafi is referencing, for context, this couple was in their early 20s and still lived with their parents and was deciding if they should get married and continue living with their parents separately or get a house. The apartment talk was not in the cards for some reason.
And this man, I'm not going to judge him for playing Fortnite.
I'm going to judge him for talking about having children the entire episode. I'm sorry. I think you're going to say what I think you're going to say. I think you're going to...
I mean, I was just going to say I judge him because he dabs, but like, yeah.
And because he did the Fortnite dance.
Yes, and he is talking about having children. The combination of it all is genuinely upsetting.
And made the real estate agent also did the Fortnite dance as a result.
Did this dude just did this?
Yeah, it was bad. It was just bad. It's not good.
She did the dance and did a backflip on a trampoline and didn't even win that episode.
That's facts. And like, she should have won that episode. Like, I'm sorry, but you know what? My relationship advice on this topic is, if you're having the choice of getting married, having a fancy wedding, or being able to live on your own, I think the choice 1 million times out of 1 million times should be live on your own. Especially like if you haven't before and you've been living with your parents, like, don't get married before you've lived with each other. Bad idea. Also, like, if you have an apartment already, that's fine, and that you're more than comfortable with starting your life in, that's one thing. Like, there was one couple, we watched, it was like a military family, and they were just trying to decide whether they stay in their apartment or they buy a house because they wanted to have children soon. Like, that's fair. That's a fair question. And like, there's levels to that as well, you know, military benefits, like life insurance, all that jazz. But y'all, live on your own with your partner before you decide to commit your life to the rest of them. They could be disgusting and just really good at hiding it. Like,
stop it. Get some help.
We've been going for an hour and a half now. We've had beef with the r/Relationship Advice moderators.
Since we're still being denied access into r/Relationship Advice, thank you, user submitted question of the week, for giving us that good content. And We hope that our first conversation was insightful for y'all. And this is a special episode because
it's a little weird episode because
we got beef with the mods.
Yeah, yo.
Say my name. Say my name. Say it.
Relationship advice. Moderators.
Let the users decide.
Facts, yo. We need to hit up the subreddit, u/subreddit drama. We need to get on that. We need to let the rest of Reddit decide whether what we're doing is deplorable or not. Just like how dare you deem me deplorable?
Talking to you, and I'm just shut your mouth. I've had enough of you, beast. Beast? Yes. How dare you?
I could be deplorable.
Maybe they looked us up and saw that we're
interracial. Yeah, they're just.
And that was enough.
I mean, with the amount of
that combined with the socialist memes, I feel like.
Because they just let things get downvoted, quote unquote, into oblivion, but they don't delete anything, and that's why I genuinely am how dare they deem us deplorable when I've seen literal just Nazi talking points listed. Sometimes it's fine. You know what?
I'm about to say it. Say it. I don't care that you broke your elbow.
Oh, they responded.
But I'm not done yet.
Okay. Their point is that they're saying. They quoted.
But we don't.
Yeah.
I said that.
They quoted the fact that we say, we're a host of a podcast about r/relationship advice, and they go, exactly how is that not mining content from this subreddit? This very behavior is the reason why we encourage the use of throwaway accounts. It doesn't matter how well intentioned you think you're being. The fact of the matter is that users post their deepest, darkest issues on the internet. And you use them for content. How would you like it if some terrible event such as a miscarriage, sexual assault, only to find out that it was broadcast to consent on air? Yeah, you dumb First off, if it's something that serious, we typically avoid the topic. That's why we say we do the top topics of the week, but honestly, we don't because we typically avoid those. But besides that point, if I have a genuinely deep, dark issue that I'm posting to the internet, I fully expect it to end up other places because it's the internet. You idiots. Your subreddit is not the end-all, be-all of deep, dark secrets of the internet, bro.
Pooja, what is this behavior?
Y'all, are we in the wrong here? Answer. I know we're not, but if we're in the wrong, we're in the wrong. Though I know we're not.
Okay, so this person makes the point that how would you like it if you had some terrible event just to find out it was being broadcast without your consent? Okay, these users are broadcasting their issues by choice to an anonymous internet forum with 4 million plus subscribers. We're not there. We are not a podcast with 4 million plus subscribers. And also, this is with the user's consent. They are posting this to the internet where anyone can view it. By choice, posting it to a community of over 4 million people. We're not doxing these people. We're not searching their IPs and finding out their identities. We're not shaming them. And also, just by the nature of the podcast, we are obligated to give these people genuine advice and not just troll them, unlike people on the subreddits who don't have anything at stake. We have our credibility on the line here, and we have our identities on the line. And if that's not the type of advice that the users are seeking, then what are they seeking?
On top of that, if we had an audience that was large enough to become an issue, then we would be broadcasting these posts to more people who could comment on and respond and interact with these people who they're posting their problems willingly, asking for advice. And so not only are we broadcasting and trying to offer advice, we are platforming them so that they could get more advice. And if we were making money on it, again, I see the issue. I genuinely see the issue, and we joke about Jeff Bezos hit us up, but no, we're not. We're literally just not making money on this podcast, and so why this is why I'm coming at this person for being a sad, lonely, probably subpar looking piece of garbage, because they're just trying to act like this relationship advice subreddit is like the most important thing and the most sanctified thing in the world, when at the end of the day it's a forum where people post a lot of nonsense, and people post about accidentally sending dick pics to, yes, they do post some serious conversations that deserve trigger warnings, and a lot of times we
give trigger warnings and provide mental health
resources, and we avoid topics that we deem too much. Ugh. You know,
I think we need to go to AITA with this.
I think we need to go to subreddit drama. Subreddit drama is where beefs on Reddit get solved. Yeah, but
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Right now we're blocked. We're blocked from viewing relationship advice. And moderators of relationship advice.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Catch you outside.
Lurk and Larry's, thank you once again for tuning in. We will keep you posted on our status, I'm sure. If I throw hands, I'll let you know. I'll film it. I'll make sure one of my friends is there to scream World Star. It'll be good content. Then I'll be mining content from the r/relationship advice people. But just for my fight tape, for when I inevitably do some MMA things in my future, you know, talk about YouTube boxing, or we'll get into podcaster MMA. But yeah, we need to wrap this up. We've been recording for a minute. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes.
You know, follow us on Instagram at Lurkers Podcast. If you need any mental health resources, we have a bunch listed in the description to this podcast. We have our Survey Monkey and our Instagram DMs if you want to contact us regarding a question. And yeah, do we do the outro now? Have a great week, you Lurkin' Larrys. See you next Sunday.
Thank you for tuning into Lurkers,
the #1
and only
r/relationship advice podcast.